Well, welcome everyone to this D2L with Dave and Paul webinar series. We're on session number 8, and this is for teaching Canadian and World Studies and Social Sciences and the Humanities inside of Brightspace. If you haven't already, I would suggest logging into Brightspace, either using the gecdsb.elearningontario.ca website there, and you can select the D2L with Dave teacher course. I am just going to share my screen so you can also see another way of doing that. So if you're on the public board website and you scroll all the way down to the very bottom of the screen, you'll notice there's an option for D2L Brightspace. And if you click on that and you're already inside of Office 365 or something like that, you will automatically be brought into Brightspace. And then in the My Courses widget, you'll see something like D2L with Dave teacher course. Okay, so just so you know, that's where we're going to be doing a lot of the demos today, and hopefully we'll be able to meet your needs. So just so you're aware, if you haven't attended any of these before, my name is Dave Gomes. I am our technology-enabled learning and teaching contact for the board. I work in our student success department. And I'm the liaison with the Ministry of Education for e-learning and with D2L. I am co-hosted by Paul Lonke today, who is the special assignment literacy teacher currently, past English department head at Essex District High School, and he's been an e-learning teacher for 3 years now. And I believe year number 4 coming up next year.
Yes, media.
Yeah, so Paul's going to be teaching a new media studies course next year. So that's exciting to kind of travel into. So today we're going to be hopefully answering a lot of your questions and then doing some demos based on what your questions are. We just want to make sure that we're supporting you and answering whatever questions that you have as we move forward in this digital era. So if you're looking to use Brightspace for your online courses, or if you're teaching an online course next year, we want to be able to support you and let you know that there is support, and there's a lot of things you can do within Brightspace. So to start this off, similar to how we've started off a lot of them, we have some questions for you. And the first question that I'd like you to respond in the chat for is, what do you do in your regular classroom that you would like to learn to replicate online? So what do you do in your regular classroom that you'd like to learn to replicate online? And if you can just post your answers in the chat.
So what's happening is Dave and I have prepared a few ideas of what we anticipate might be some of the things that you'd like to do. So we're going to look at what you're interested in and talk about some of those things if there's interest. And if there are other things that we haven't prepared for, we'll try to address those at the end or follow up.
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely. So for example, I know, Lori, we're going to cover some spontaneous discussions today and different ways of doing that. I've never thought of doing map making because I would need to learn a little bit more about how to make maps, but we can certainly have a discussion on that. Debates, mock trials, yeah, absolutely. Debates and timely discussions, sharing discussions, awesome. So small group work, discussions, yep. And I feel like that's what a lot of the things that we had thought about already. In collaboration with a couple history teachers and social science teachers, I spoke with them and asked what kind of things before we would present on this, and Paul was definitely helpful with that as well. So thank you for sharing those with us. If you can, at the end, if we haven't covered things, please bring these up again so that we can have a discussion about them and then maybe brainstorm some activities we could use for that. Okay, so thank you for sharing. Before we move into question number 2, I just want to point you to a few of the past webinars that we've done. So if you're looking at the first 4 sessions, I know this is session number 8, but the first 4 sessions, you can all find them at bit.ly/D2L with Dave 1, 2A, and 2B, 3, 4, and actually you can find 5, 6, and 7 as well. So if you just type in those, and they're just different topical ones. So if we're going to be talking about something about discussions, we might not be able to go full into detail, but you can find that more in session number 3 on communication. Okay, so let's jump into question number 2. And because we have a wide variety of people here from Canadian and World Studies and Social Sciences and the Humanities, we're going to ask some questions that are kind of more thematic in terms of your teaching area. I'm going to turn on this feature called multi-user mode, and I want to know, what is your favorite? So what's your favorite food out of the 4 that are listed? You can take your cursor or your mouse, put it over wherever you want to hover, and where do you want? Do you want some falafel, some dumplings, some carnitas, or a nice little steak there? Okay, wow, I'm shocked that no one went for the dumplings. It's interesting. All right, Paul went there.
They look delicious. Yeah.
And all right, so cool. Next, question number 3. We're going to do this a couple times. Question number 3. Actually, I'm going to turn this off first. So we want you to choose your favorite fashion. Favorite fashion out of these 4. It could be difficult. Actually, you know what? I think I forgot one person inside there. I'm going to add that one in. So if you're wondering, that last one is from Zoolander. That is Mugatu. I'm going to stay over there. But choose your favorite style that you see represented.
Awesome. So we have a fashionable crew here. Everyone's going for Bjork. I love it.
Yep. And just so you know, I'm just demoing something that we can use within the virtual classroom right now. If you're wondering, we are actually within this platform called Bongo, but Bongo is actually, it's the virtual classroom that we use inside of Brightspace. So you can launch a virtual classroom session. It's vetted by the ministry. It's provided by the Ministry of Education. It is safe and secure. And this is what the ministry would have us use if we're using Brightspace to run our courses. So this is just a feature that we have inside here. It's called multi-user mode. And interestingly enough, if you wanted, on the right side of your screen, you probably see some annotation tools. If you click up on the tools, you can grab a pencil and circle some things if you want, mess with my slides. You can write hello or hi. Thanks, Paul. Put in some shapes, change your colors. And yeah, it would actually be great for a 4-corner debate too. That's one of the things that Paul and I were talking about previously is using like a 4-corner style, or just as a quick assessment piece on what it is you're wanting to ask your class.
Yeah, it's a great way you can also monitor student understanding, because you can put any image you want up there. That's just a PowerPoint there, so you can put anything you want behind it, and it could be how comfortable do you feel with this concept? Are you ready to move on, or do you want to review it more? And then the class can indicate where they're at. So pretty useful for synchronous teaching. Absolutely.
So I'm going to turn that multi-user mode off. We'll move to our next question. Same type of thing. Now, so take a thought on these. So I don't know that we should have put who's your favorite. So that's my fault. Maybe who do you think is the most influential, or who was the most influential? You can select one of those, and okay.
So that's Malala, Chief Tecumseh, Frida Kahlo, and Nelson Mandela.
Awesome. And this would actually be interesting, because then we could have a debate as to why the people in Camp Malala chose her and why others chose Nelson Mandela. That'd be a really interesting thing that we could even do today if we had time for it. So thank you for participating in that. I always like demoing some of the features that are unique to Brightspace's virtual classroom. Just so you know, those names will not show up in the recording, even though we were able to see them now. When you watch the recording, people are going to be like, what are they doing? I don't see anyone selecting anything. So those won't show up, but that's pretty awesome. So anyways, there's a lot of things that we can cover today, and I know a lot of you put in the discussions and debates, things like that. And I think there's going to be a lot that is kind of similar to what we covered with the English and the arts, because they said a lot of the same things. So I think, Paul, is it safe to say that you can go through this slide of Think Aloud?
Sure. Yeah, so we're going to get, I see that the big theme with everyone's comments is discussion, student interaction. So we are absolutely going to get there. We have lots to talk about how we can get students talking to each other, how we can talk to them presenting and working in small groups. But yeah, I think it's a good idea to start. We can talk about Think Aloud. So this is something that you would do when you're presenting for the entire class. This is when you're modeling the strategies. So the beginning of the gradual release of responsibility process, where you're showing the skill, and then the students are going to begin the process of mimicking you and then developing that skill for themselves so they can do it independently. So what I'm doing then in this situation is I might be modeling the skill and I'm making my thought process explicit. Maybe I'm tying my shoes and they're watching, and I'm explaining all of the moves that I make and why. So I'm demystifying the skill by showing them what it is. So this is something that we do in the classroom, and how do we do it online is the question. And we know that in online teaching, it really is effective to show your face and have your voice. And as well, if you're adding annotations to the slides there, the research is showing us that this combination of the face and the voice and the annotated slides really increases engagement. So this is one way you can do to keep the students hooked into your lesson. You can, again, what you're seeing here is just a PowerPoint that we've developed and uploaded into Brightspace. So you can have anything on your slide whatsoever. So you can have images, you can have videos, performances, writing, reading, and then you can annotate those things for the class. So if you're doing this live with the class in a synchronous way, you can use virtual classroom just as we're doing right now, and I can be annotating and talking something through. If I was doing asynchronous, it can also be done. You can go in through areas like content, announcement, or discussions, or video notes, or you can use Brightspace Capture, and that's where you record. So just like a screencast, you record a screencast. So there are lots of different ways that can be done. You can also have a virtual class meeting like we're doing right now and record that and have students look at it that way. So lots of different ways depending on what your purposes are for that specific time. All right, let's look at an example. Here's an example from history. So this is D-Day. This is a map of Normandy, France, and some of the deployments that were happening on D-Day. So I know this is something that gets talked about in history. This might be a lesson where you've got the students looking at a map and they're discussing, here are the Canadian troops, and you can talk about them for a while, and you could talk about sort of what happened. And if you're going to discuss the details of that battle with your class, that's one thing that you could do. You could also, again, using the multi-user mode, ask students, in your opinion, what would be the most strategic location, things like that. Then you can get students interacting with you over this map that you put up there. So that's one possibility. Another possibility we were thinking of is you can have maps. If you're teaching geography, you can have all kinds of maps, and then discuss different regions. This is Indigenous languages in Canada. So if I was using that, I might kind of have that up and ask students. I might begin by saying, what do you notice about this map? And then get the students kind of identifying what they want to look at in that image. What do you wonder? And you could start the discussion there. So this is nice because it's really pretty open-ended. You can do whatever you want, and then you can annotate it while you're discussing it with the students and talking about, this language and that language. And again, you can use any image you want. We thought about if you're teaching history, timelines could be another nice thing that you can do, and then you can be discussing that while adding your notes on top of that. Using virtual classroom for Think Alouds can be very useful. And those are images, but we can also do this with text. Maybe you have a piece of text that you're looking at it. If it's an article or a snippet out of a textbook or something like that, we can do the exact same thing, and we can have the students read this, and then we can discuss it, and we can annotate it. We can highlight different things and color different parts of it, and we can have the students contributing as well. So that's one way that you can model thinking, and a skill that you're doing. You can model that for your students, and hopefully they'll be able to absorb that on a deeper level than if you're just online kind of uploading a document or typing it. You're really bringing that learning to life there. Okay. I've covered most of this stuff. So I guess for a second, we can ask people, how else might you use the annotations feature? So thinking about the classes that you teach, and if you know what you're teaching in September, maybe take a second and write down in the chat pod, how might you use, what use could this have in your classroom? So I'll just give you a minute to think about that.
Yeah, thanks for sharing all that, Paul. So when we're looking at this, when we're looking at the annotations feature, one thing that we showed in math as well, yes, or on Monday, was that we could also load in just a blank screen and have it just an entire whiteboard if you're planning that. So you can always do something like that. But how do you think you could use annotations? So keep in mind, students can annotate on your presentation if you allow them to. But where do you see that opportunity? And if, so yeah, Marg is saying the use of maps, summary writing. Yeah, absolutely. So if you're looking at something, finding evidence to support an argument, great.
And they could be identifying the stronger and weaker evidence. Cool.
Okay. That's some pretty good ideas there.
Oh, a fill in the blank. Dean has got a great idea for working with an applied class, for example, and you've got a question and then you work with the class to fill in the blanks. Brainstorming. Yeah.
I guess we could have done something like that, right? have our blank right here and then type it in. Or so we don't just have to use annotations too. We could also put in a text box, right? So we could go in, fill that in, and then it should show up. There we go. Oh, mine didn't show up because I've got that. But so you've got that that different pieces there. Can we show Kahoot response? That's a good question.
Maybe we could show Mark the polls, and that could.
Yeah, so that's a great great idea. So let's we can use polls. So I can initiate a poll right now, and right now I'm just going to use we'll go ABC. No, we'll do true or false, and we'll say, is it true that you are, or I guess I am learning something in this session so far? Let's hope that's a good answer. And you notice at the top, the polling options will show true or false.
So you'll see gray buttons at the top of the screen.
Yeah, and so I'll just leave it open for another couple of seconds, but you can get live polling data and then close and publish those results. And we can see 90 or 93% of the poller or the polled said yes, true, and one said no.
Yeah, that was me, Dave. I'm really disappointed so far.
You are, what a jerk. Well, you didn't learn anything because you've already done it. Okay, so yeah, I mean, there's some different things you can do inside there. Now, Marg, in order to use Kahoot, you wouldn't be able to share the Kahoot questions or anything on here. But what you could do is you could always use the share your screen option. And then if I'm going to share my screen, I just need to open up a web browser here. So when I share my screen, I could have Kahoot loaded onto here. And then if I was running my game from here, then I could have the results come up live and you could see everything that I'm doing. So that might be a good way of using Kahoot. Okay.
Nice. Okay.
So yeah, but that's a great question because I know Kahoot has been used a lot in many classrooms as a way of engaging students. So the next thing we can talk about, I think we'll jump down to. I'm going to go to slide number. Which one? Slide number.
We're going to start on 15 student conferencing.
I was going to go up to the discussions, but yeah, we can do the student conferencing. So why don't we do that? So just so you guys are aware, there's multiple ways of communicating with students inside the Brightspace learning environment. So when you think about conferencing with students, whether this is in an individual or a group setting, there are some different options. The first option here that we would suggest is if you're looking at asynchronous, the idea there is that you're not going to be live with the students. So there's multiple tools you can use. You can email students back and forth individually. You can send instant messages within Brightspace individually. You could have a discussion set up, and in your discussions, you could either have those individual with students, or you could set up a group, and then you could create a discussion group and have your discussions that's just with that one group, and then the next group, and then the next group. And you can also use this tool called Video Note. So Video Note is a phenomenal tool, and what it allows you to do is inside of Brightspace, you can record up to 30 minutes of webcam footage, or you can upload a video that you've already recorded somewhere else. So if you recorded it on your phone, you can upload it as a video note, and it shows right inside of Brightspace. So you don't have to upload it to YouTube or send a file for people to download, and it's very useful that way. You can also do that synchronously, like we're doing right now through Virtual Classroom or Bongo, right? And so you could set up a meeting with a student or a group of students and have that meeting that you'd need. So what we've done in past sessions is we've demonstrated how to create a discussion group or a student group so that you could have those discussions. So I'm just going to share my screen quickly, and I will. Oh, where am I? Am I sharing my screen yet?
Not yet.
Why isn't she showing yet? Let's go here. Screen one, share.
Oh, that's starting. Okay, there you go.
Okay, so inside of the course that I would be looking to be in here, once this loads up, you can create discussions right from the nav bar right here. But before you do something like that, what you can go into is this course admin. And this is basically where you have control over everything that exists inside the course. So under learner management, there's this option for groups, and you can select that groups option and then create individual groups. And Paul was demonstrating how you could create lab partner groups, so like groups of 2. I'm just going to zoom in so you can see it a little bit better. So what I can do here is I can create a new group category. And I'll call this discussion groups. And then I can specify what I want these discussion groups to be like. So I can select here just a certain number of students or a certain number of groups. I can select that students can either self-enroll or I have to assign them. So let's say I want these to be groups of 4 for discussions, and then I can assign them different roles inside that discussion. So now what it's going to do is it's going to create me it's going to automatically create these discussion groups for me, and then I can either auto-enroll users, randomize users, or I can individually select where those would be. And so I'll just click Save there. And now what I end up having is these discussion groups where as long as there's users in the class, they'll get added into these different groups. So in this course I'm using, there's only 1 student in there. So you can see there's only 1 group that was created. But as more students join the class, then they would get thrown into a discussion group. Now, one way you could use this is when you go into discussions, right? If we were to go and create a new discussion, so I'm just going to create a new topic for a discussion, then I have the ability right at this topic type to show either it's an open topic, so everyone in the class can view it, or it's a group or section topic. And if I select that group topic, notice I have the option of choosing discussion groups, and then I can go through and create that discussion for my class to join in. Right, and if we had more time, we would actually we would let you go in and participate in a discussion group, but right now, that's where I think I'm just going to cancel this and then stop sharing my screen. But that's essentially where you could go in and use that for student conferencing. But there's also more options for that. So for student conferencing, you may want to have just a single, like a group of 1, and then it creates you 30 groups of 1, so that you now have a back and forth with that student and it's private for you and that student. But this kind of leads into a lot of the other pieces that you were asking about. So things like mock trials, having a place for the defense or the jury to collaborate and talk in a safe space where no one else can see, right? Or even in class or group discussions, right? So I know I kind of veered away a little bit from just student conferencing, but using this discussion tool as a way of using it I guess, to group students and have them have their own little collaborative space, I think is very useful. And I think one of our past e-learning teachers, he's actually on right now, I'm going to name him by name, Anthony Tuil, used to do this with group discussions in the Challenge and Change in Society course. So he would create groups of 4 students, and then every time he would have one group facilitator who would facilitate the conversation, and then the next time they had a group discussion, the next person facilitated, and so on.
Yeah, this is really helpful because some of us, if we've taken AQ courses, might have been privy to these online discussions where you have the whole class all chiming in one big group. And that's really tough when the teacher does the, post once and respond to 2. That's really hard for students because number one, it's a lot of information for them to sift through. And also once a few people have posted their answers, sometimes there's not much room left for other people to say. So if you using small groups is one way that you can make more productive discussions.
Absolutely. Yeah. So if we jump over to, student presentations, you could look in basically the same type of thing. So there, you could have them asynchronous or synchronous. You could host them in this virtual classroom, or you could have them doing an asynchronous presentation to the class in the discussion forum. So if you made it not to a grouped one, but everyone else could participate inside there, discussion forums can be a great tool in here. Okay. I'm going to skip portfolio for now and move to this because we're still talking about discussions. So I know we were just looking at discussion groupings. So another tool you could use discussion groups for would be a jigsawing. So if you have a text that students need to read through, you could actually place them into groups and then discuss a different question in those groups. And then everyone provides you might have a leader from that group that goes back to the entire class and posts their group's summary of that section. So instead of everyone reading everything and commenting on everything, you could be creative in the way that you set those different responsibilities up. And it could just be something like, choose a battle and explain its significance in respect to the overall war. So if you had 5 battles you were studying, you could assign those 5 battles to different groups, and then they could do the legwork in posting that to the rest of the class. Okay. I think in talking with someone else, they had mentioned the idea of using Socratic circles. Paul, do you think you'd be able to speak to this one?
Sure. Socratic circles, this is a really powerful discussion tool, and it's about getting the students exploring a text or an idea independently. And the real challenge with Socratic circles is letting the students talk amongst themselves without the teacher kind of stepping in every second and kind of directing that discussion. So it can be a very powerful tool to get students talking. So in the physical classroom, what we would do there is we would have all the desks set up in a circle. We would have 2 circles, an inner circle and an outer circle. So there you go, an inner circle, look at this, and an outer circle. In the inner circle, we would have one group of students, and they're having the discussion. Now, if I'm a student, maybe I'm sitting right here and I'm participating in this discussion that's part of the inner circle. And then I have a partner who's my coach, and the partner is sitting on the outer circle, and my partner is watching me in the discussion, and she's taking note of all the good things and the bad things that I do in the discussion. When I contribute positively, when I ask clarifying questions, and so on, when I make eye contact, also keeping track of when I engage in offside conversations and so on. So I have a participant in the conversation and a coach, and then they speak for maybe 5 minutes or 6 minutes, and then we have a pause and the coaches debrief with their partners, and then they have a second session, and then normally in the classroom, then you'd switch that and the coach would enter the inner circle and be part of the discussion while the original discussion person has now become the coach. So that's something that we do in the traditional classroom. How would we do that online? Well, one way that could be done would be to start with students having partners. So maybe in your class you have elbow partners or desk partners set up. So you could have discussion groups set up with those partners so that they can easily jump into a discussion and talk about these kind of things. Another way to do that is to use the instant messaging. So what students can do, show here. All right, so I think my screen is showing. Yep, there it is. Okay, so for instant messaging, students would just go up here, and you can do this too. You just go up to messages there, and you can choose email or instant messages, and you click on that. And a lot of students are comfortable using the instant message, and then they can just quickly connect with a partner and discuss that essential question that you were talking about. Okay. Then after they've discussed that, then you can have smaller groups discussing that topic. So everyone comes into a virtual classroom chat like this, and then you can have the group of speakers speaking while the coaches have their microphones and their cameras turned off, and they're doing the observing. So each discussion participant would be observed by their silent partner, and then you would pause that discussion, and then the coaches and participants could jump back into their discussion or their instant message chat and give each other feedback on how they're doing, and then reflect and then move on. So that's one way that something that would seem like a really a strategy that depends on using the live classroom. There are ways that we can create similar things online. Dave, I'm wondering if we should show the must post first for discussion. I think a lot of teachers like that feature. So what I'll do is I'll go in here. Okay. So if I'm looking at discussions and I'm setting one up, pardon me, go back to the other. Oh, I'm in the wrong class. Sorry about this, folks. I'm going to the teacher course. All right, and if I look at discussions, okay. If I'm going to create a discussion, as I'm choosing my groups and my forums and my information, my description, I can put a video of myself here, by the way, explaining what the discussion is going to be. But there are some nice options down at the bottom here. And this is allowing anonymous posts, but the one that people I think will like is users must start a thread before they can read and reply to other threads. So you may have had this experience where a student might look at the chat room and then kind of read everyone else's responses, and then kind of synthesize something together and write that as their response, kind of as a shortcut to doing the research. So if you choose this option, students will not be able to view other students' contributions to the discussion until they've made their initial post first. So that's one tool that's available at your disposal.
And if I can interject there as well, just in terms of discussions, I find what works best when you're wanting to have an online discussion is not just having a single question. So if you ask one question and say, what is the significance of X? And then all of a sudden everyone just comes up with the same answers, you're going to be expecting that because of the way that the question was asked, right? If you ask, 4 or 5 different questions and almost provide like a low floor, high ceiling, where some students who may not understand the concept extremely well, they might be able to answer the lower difficulty questions, but then you're also challenging those students to think beyond that. So it all does kind of hinge on how the questions are being asked, and are there better ways to ask a discussion question rather than just having one small question. So it's definitely something to think about when you're using discussions.
Sure. Now I talked about Socratic circles, which is much more of a kind of cooperative kind of discussion where we're seeking to understand a topic and we're responding to each other. That's in contrast to debates and also mock trials. Dave, did you want to talk to those two for a minute?
Yep, sure. And I don't think, looking at it, I can't seem to find if I actually had the slides for those. So I must not have put slides up for those.
No, I think you just spoke to it, yeah.
Yeah, so I apologize for that. But yeah, if we were going to be having either debates or mock trials, the way that I think I would handle that is I would have a discussion group for those different sides of the debate or for the different roles in a mock trial. And then what I would do is if it's going to be asynchronous, so if you're not going to be doing it all at the same time, I would have the discussion inside of the whole class discussion, and where you can have one representative from one side of the argument make their I guess their point or their rebuttal, something like that. But I think the way that I would do that, if students are comfortable with it, is to use video note, because then it is actually bringing more of that rhetoric to it, as opposed to just typing and thinking about what you would want to be saying. So in order to do that, I'm gonna demo. Paul, I'm gonna steal back presenter privileges and demo.
Sure.
Very, very briefly. And okay, so inside here, and I know there's already a topic inside. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go into this topic and imagine that this was the topic that was for, you know, opening remarks. So I would start a new thread, and just like Paul was showing in here. So I'm going to put in opening remarks in support. Okay, inside here, what I would do is I would select this little play icon, which is the insert stuff icon, and I'm going to select add video note. Now, what adding a video note is going to do is it's going to allow me to record my webcam, or I can upload that file. So if I recorded that webcam previously, or I recorded on my phone, I can do that. Or I can select new recording. It's going to record everything I say, everything I do, and it's going to show what's ever in the background. So you can see this ceiling lamp. Stop the recording. Select new recording. It's going to record everything I say. Select next. Next. You can give it a title and description if you'd like, and I'm going to select insert. Now, you're going to notice it doesn't insert right away. It's saying that this media file is being transformed. It does actually happen very quickly. So I'm going to go to the bottom, select post, and it may actually already be inside there embedded. Yep, it is. So depending on the length of it, it might take a little bit longer, but then you could listen to the opening remarks of that specific student or that group. Or I can select new recording. It's going to record. Okay, and so you can see that. So that's if you were doing it asynchronously. As we know, if you're in an online environment, it may not be possible to get everyone online at the same time, but that's how you could do it kind of back and forth using video note. Another way you could do that if you wanted to do it synchronously is by using virtual classroom. So that's where we're in right now. And I'm just going to show you how you can launch that. So in the nav bar, there's this icon titled virtual classroom. And you can create a virtual classroom session very easily, actually. So I would suggest doing this in Google Chrome, not any other type of browser. But in the bottom right-hand corner, you click on the plus for schedule a meeting, and then you give it a title. So let's say it's just our mock trial. I can select a date and a time. So I can, if I select my date as, it's going to be tomorrow at, we'll say it's at 2 o'clock. I can do that. And then I can set the duration. So I can set it to 90 minutes if that's how long we want it to be. And you can either set it to automatically record the meeting, publish the recorded meeting, and that's just for students in the class. And you can allow external participants. Now, I want to make something clear here. If you're using this with students, you should not be allowing external participants in, because then it opens it up to things like Zoom bombing and where other people could get that link and get into this.
Sorry, can I jump in there for one quick sec, Dave? We did have one question. Marg was asking about how we would use guest speakers in D2L.
That's exactly what I was going to talk about.
Okay, sorry.
Yep. So this could be the way of using a guest speaker. So if you did allow external participants for the sake of allowing a guest speaker to come in, this would be the way to do it. However, I might suggest that maybe you want to have that virtual classroom discussion with the guest speaker previous to having it live with your students, just so that something inappropriate doesn't happen during that session with students. So you just have to be very careful with that. Okay, but if you do select allow external participants, there's a public link that you can copy, and that's actually what we've been doing with our sessions that we're currently in. Now, I know there were also some things about spontaneous discussions or spontaneous conversations. If I don't want to set the meeting date for tomorrow at 2, I can just select now, And it's going to, when I save that, now that meeting is going to be available and students can come in here, see the mock trial, click on the 3 dots, and then launch that meeting, right? And then now I'm going to be in another, like I can enter the meeting room and go through that process. Okay, so that could be one way of doing those discussions or debates or the mock trial, because then you are able to give people the presenter privileges, right? So Paul and I have been going back and forth between presenters. We have our microphones on. I can mute myself. I can mute Paul. I can mute everyone else. But the idea here is that you can be as collaborative in this virtual learning environment, in the virtual classroom, as you want to be. So that's a great way of engaging students through mock trial or debate. So I know we're at about 1:15. I know we started a little bit late. I do want to share just one other thing, which I think is actually really, really cool to share. And it's because it was created by one of the teachers who's in here today. So one thing that we kind of shared last year with math teachers specifically, and then I shared it with some of our e-learning teachers, was the idea of using a digital breakout room or a digital escape room. And so you can create these and either run them asynchronously where students are solving them offline or online, but not while you're there with them. Or you could be doing it synchronously through virtual classroom where students are solving those breakout challenges and then coming back to you and asking for clues if they need something, or they could even be working in groups and doing it like that. So if you're looking for some samples, you can go to bit.ly/escapemathpd, and or we could go to this one. And I'm actually going to open up this one that Dina Riccio created. And she created it for her history class. So I've just got to open that up for a quick second. So I got to get to the link. I'm going to open up both of them just so we can see where I got the ideas from. So here's the one that's just the bit.ly/ what was it, mathpd, escape math PD. That one is going to just give you all the different ones that I use to kind of learn how to create these things. But basically what they are is they're different games that you can play that all have, they start inside a Google site, and then you embed a Google form inside them that kind of acts as your locks. Where am I going here? I need to go back in here and open up this one. So I'm going to open up Dina's. And I don't know any of the answers to this. So Dina, you may have to help us out. But you can see this is a breakout, and it's talking about Canada's history of World War II. And this is actually Dina's classroom at the back of her class. And what students would do is, as they're in here, what you notice is when I'm hovering over certain areas of this picture, it gives me a link. So when I click on that, it's going to bring me somewhere else, and that's kind of like a clue. So we'd have to find out inside of here once it loads up. And of course, my internet's just going pretty slowly. Okay. Oh, sorry. So when we go inside here, it's got a numerical lock, and it's looking at, when you look at a timeline, how could you put these in order and get a specific time, which I think is a really cool one. I don't know the answer to that, but if you do, then you could look into that. But then down here is the locks, right? So you can look at, so there's a 6-letter alphabetical key. Who am I? So it's some person that you would find from the different clues inside here. Local connection that will always turn up. Again, that's probably something from another clue. You can see all these other things, and then once all of those clues have brought you to a particular answer, and then what you would end up doing is you'd end up clicking next and getting the right answer. So if I put in something like this, and I don't know, it's going to tell me, oh, it's still locked. Check your times and try again until I get that right, and then it's going to tell me that you've done it correctly. Now, this might look to be a little bit difficult to make. One thing I'd like to share with you, though, is if you go into that D2L with Dave teacher course, you just open that up. There is, in the content section, there's a list of 11 videos that can help you if you want to create your own breakout room. So it's, again, a great way to engage students in the online classroom. So right here you see digital breakout planning. So all of this is actually a YouTube playlist of videos that I've created, and there's 11 of them, starting from creating your Google site, and then creating your Google form, embedding the Google form, starting with your clues, using shortened links, organizing the site, and so on. So it kind of brings you from starting at nothing to creating an entire breakout room. So that's something, if you're interested in doing a breakout room, or even as a group, if there's a few history or a few law teachers or a few family studies teachers that are interested in creating something like this, please reach out to me. Like Dina's saying inside there, it takes a little bit of time to create, but I've kind of broken it down step by step in the hopes that it would be easy for someone to follow. Okay, so I'll stop sharing my screen. I wanted to really commend Dina for doing that. Dina's actually also one of our e-learning teachers for the last few years, and I think next year as well. So we're definitely always glad to see when people take these things and run with it. So it's phenomenal work that she's done there. Okay. So basically, I think that's all we kind of have time for today, unless there's something else. If you have questions, maybe we can take a few minutes and answer some questions. I noticed Steph just put one inside there. If we're going to be doing a session on capture, I haven't done one yet, but so what I'm doing on Tuesday, I think, is a session for the summer school teachers, and it's going to be on capture. So I'm going to record that and then just share it out with our board, because I'm doing that for the provincial summer school teachers for the province. So, okay, yeah, actually, Paula, that's a great point. So there are master courses available. If you go into Brightspace, and you go to the main Brightspace login, not that course, right up at the top, there's this option for master courses. Okay, and if you select master courses from that nav bar, then you can actually see which courses are available from TELO, or Technology Enabled Learning Ontario. And so you can see they're and you go to the main Brightspace login, not that course. Right up at the top, there's this option for master courses. Okay, and if you select master courses from that nav bar, then you can actually see which courses are available from TELO, or Technology Enabled Learning Ontario. And so you can see they're done by department, so Canadian and World Studies and Social Sciences and the Humanities. And you can see which courses actually have content available for them. Okay, so there's some that are done recently from, actually, the majority of the Canadian World Studies and Social Science courses are new just because of the curriculum changes. So you can see all these courses are done from 2016 to 2018. And if you want to register for those and use them, then you can do that, right? And we covered that in the content session number 2. So if you're looking at how to access these, go to session number 2. I think 2A, and you can view how to access these, copy them. There is also a quick little sheet that shows that. So if you go to accessing and copying, there's an instruction sheet you can download that gives you the explicit instructions on how you can add courses from the master courses in Brightspace. Okay, so thank you for bringing that up, Paula. That was a great thing to share. Okay. So can you think of anything else that we should cover? If you have any questions, please type them into the chat. Or again, you can always email Paul and I. We can help you with that. at a later time.
Do we have access to jump in or read, listen to partners and groups? Yes, as the teacher, you're able to join all of the discussions and see what's going on there.
Yep, absolutely. And I think I messaged that above earlier. Where would marks be recorded? Okay, so Andrew, that's a really good question. There is a grades tool you can use inside of Brightspace. I think we showed that in the assessment session we did, which was session number 4. So there is some documentation that I'll be sharing out a little bit later after all these sessions are done as well. But there is a grade section you can use. However, some teachers still like using the gradebook inside of Edsby, so they would use the like Brightspace for showing all the course content and having discussions and submitting assignments, but then they would move all their marks still over to Edsby. And there's nothing wrong with doing that either. Some teachers, if you want to take the time to look into grades, you can set them up, attach grade items, and attach them from either assignments or just mark them against curriculum expectations, because you can do all of that right within Brightspace. So there's going to be documentation coming out on that, but there is a grades section and there's an expectations progress page inside of Brightspace where you can access all of that. And actually, if you remember where I showed the course admin, there's an option for grades right inside there.